So this is the Apple Watch Ultra, and I have to say, I'm absolutely in love with it. I've been using it ever since I got it, and it has been absolutely amazing. I really, really like this watch. However, you know, there are reasons I'm not keeping it, which I'll get in towards the later part of this video, but let's start off and talk about what my experience has been so far. And I have to say, I'm absolutely amazed by this watch. The battery life is just so excellent. I get 36 hours of it with always on display, with workout tracking, everything, sleep tracking, all of that enabled, and I get actual 36 hours of usage, real world usage. So Apple wasn't lying when they said 36 hours. And I have no doubt in my mind, if I were to turn off always on display, I would easily get 2+ days. Like I'm saying 48+ hours, because that always on display does take up a lot of the battery. So while like sleeping and stuff, if that was turned off, that would just really change the whole battery situation on this. So this is a very thick watch, so obviously they're able to stuff in a much bigger battery than they were in the Series 8 and SE. So this being a bigger watch also means just space for more things. So what you get is another button, which is really nice to have. You get a much larger speaker, which is also much louder, and you also just get a overall more larger footprint for that display too, which makes it a 49mm display now. And let's talk about the display. I absolutely love the display. That flat display is really nice. I'm not a big fan of curved glass, guys, so flat displays, flat glass is always better to me, and having the glass inlaid within metal to give it just a little bit more protection is even smarter in my opinion. It really does help keep that glass protected. I do like that design element. However, knowing the way watches and glass works, this is still going to get cracked or beat up if you drop it. It just, there's not that much protection over it. There is a little bit more than there is on the regular Apple Watches, but this will still get scratched up or, you know, crack if you do drop it hard enough. And as I'm talking about all of this, the display also just has incredible brightness. So when you're outdoors, this display just feels so incredible. I love how bright it gets, and it actually makes usability just so much better in day-to-day. So I think that brighter display is something I'm really hoping for on the new Apple Watch. Whenever the next series comes out, I want that to have the same kind of display brightness this gets as well. And while I'm talking about all that, let me talk about obviously this whole new design. So the design is actually really nice, and I finally have just come to love that Apple has changed the design. It's been 7, almost 8 years since Apple came out with the Apple Watch, and the design has more or less been the same. It feels the same. Yes, the screen sizes have changed over time, but it still feels like the same watch. It's hard to distinguish one from the other unless the screen is turned on sometimes. So this is the first one that's a clear departure from that, and this new design just looks really nice. I would like it to be a little bit thinner. This is very thick, but overall I think that the new design really is a big benefit, and it just made it feel like I was wearing a new watch. The experience of feeling like I finally have a new watch is something I haven't experienced in a long time, because all the other Apple Watches feel just so similar in feel and size on the hand. Also, I just absolutely love this Wayfinder compilation, this watch face. It's so nice. It really has so much information, and also I think one of the best parts about it is that it actually looks good with the always on display. So the always on display is something I really don't use a lot, and for good reason, because it just doesn't really work that well for me. Like whatever the compilations I like to use, the watch faces I like to use, when it goes into always on display mode, it just gets like slightly dimmer. It doesn't really turn the display black, and that sucks. I want it to turn completely off, so like it saves a lot more battery. But with this, number one, even if the screen was turned on, the battery is so good you won't have to worry about it. But number two, that Wayfinder watch face is just absolutely amazing. So that's all the good stuff. Let me go ahead and talk about some of the things I don't like. So I was talking about this being a thick watch, and it absolutely is. It's very thick, it's very heavy, and I actually don't like the digital crown placement. It's sunken in within this like raised side edge, which is not good. It actually makes using it way harder, and I found that this crown is so much harder to press than other older Apple Watches. It's actually quite difficult, and there's not as much you know, travel to it either, so I'm just not finding it to be nice to operate the digital crown, and I love using the digital crown to operate my Apple Watch, so that is a little bit of a downside. So the action button is nice, but it still needs to expand to more features. Right now the feature set that you can use it on is limited, so I pretty much just put it into like going into workout mode, which is not that difficult, but that's kind of the only thing that I can think of using it for, so that's what I put it in. There's no other, like, you can't set it to do maybe, you know, other, like I would just like more implementation of the action button, or maybe make it into it being like a back button or something more than what it just is, because that is just a very simple use for a very common button. And maybe over time apps will incorporate this button to have more features in the watch, but for now it's just a quick toggle. It's a very big quick toggle to one thing and only one thing. So if I like this watch so much, why am I not keeping it? Well, the biggest reason is because it's not comfortable. So unfortunately, this 49mm case is just not comfortable on my hand. It's way too big, and I found for the first time in my life wearing an Apple Watch that I found it uncomfortable. I was just like, I have to take this off after a couple of hours. It's not feeling comfortable in my hand. It felt heavy in the hand, and the weight is pretty massive, being a titanium and ceramic on the bottom with this display, with this size. Obviously it's just going to be very heavy. It feels uncomfortable after a couple of hours, and I wear my Apple Watch 24/7. The only time I take off my Apple Watch is when I go shower, because I like to use it for sleep tracking and everything else. So this is the first time I ever felt like, I just want to take this watch off and not wear anything on my wrist. That happened after years. Otherwise, I have worn my Apple Watch day and night with no ever feeling like, I just want to take this off my wrist. So that's something that I noticed, and what ended up happening was I was thinking to myself and decided that at $800, there are not a lot of software features that I can use in this that make sense for me. So there is that new diving feature that's exclusive to it, the siren, there's a couple of small things here and there, there's the action button that are kind of exclusive to this, but other than that, this is pretty much another Apple Watch with all the same features, everything else. So really, it comes down to me asking myself, am I really going to utilize those features? And are they worth the sacrifice of comfort? And the answer just was no, unfortunately. I love this watch, but giving up comfort for something I wear every day is not something I am willing to compromise on. So I had to make the hard decision to actually decide to not hold on to this watch, even though I absolutely love it. And another small thing that I have to say is that this watch is just so big and bulky. It ends up not looking that good when you wear formal clothing, and I do wear formal clothing on a decent occasion, on like decent intervals, so I do end up wanting something that flows well with it. Look, I'm not the biggest fashion person. You guys can see like half my clothes here. They're very basic and simple, okay? I don't go crazy with my clothing, so I'm not big into fashion, but even this to me felt a little bit too off. So it's definitely a more lifestyle type device. It's not something that everybody will want to wear all the time either, which is something that I like to do with my Apple Watch. So as you guys can see, at this point I was just nitpicking, but the Apple Watch is a great product. I really love it, but I do want to say one thing about it before I go. This is not a real like actual adventure crazy type watch. This is a very more so aesthetic product. It looks like that. It's great. It does have a few features that could help you if you do diving or something, but if you're an actual diver, I don't think you should run out to buy. Well, I almost dropped that, so that was cool. But I don't think you should actually go out and buy this if you're, say, you're a diver or you're hiking or doing some of those crazy things Apple showed you on in their promo video of like, oh, you can climb mountains and use this, and like, it's still an Apple Watch. It still has its limitations. It's still not perfect. You know, it doesn't have the same level of activity tracking and preciseness that some of these other watches do. So I wouldn't completely say that this is worth it for that right now. Sure, Apple can improve this in future generations, and my opinion might change on it. But as it sits, this is definitely more of an aesthetic device, and there's nothing wrong with it. Having the rugged look and selling watches that are rugged, or at least look rugged, is something Casio has been doing for years and has succeeded so well. The G-Shock watches sell like crazy. You see them everywhere. So that's not something Apple is wrong in trying out. It's just their marketing seems to be kind of ingenuine, where to the point where they're just kind of like, oh, this is for the most adventure active people. I bet you most of the people that buy this are not going to go on a single hike. So that's just the reality of it. If you're buying it for that, I would probably say you would want to gauge this and try this out very carefully before you make your decision. But for anybody else who just wants the design and the aesthetic, go for it. It's a great watch. If you can justify that $800 price, I think that it's a really, really nice product, and I would have no trouble suggesting it if you have the budget for it. If you don't have the budget for it, the Series 8 does 99% of the same stuff that most people would actually want, and you would not have to worry about it. So that's it for the Apple Watch Ultra, guys. I am sad to see this go, but also I'm excited for the future of new, different styles of Apple Watches as well. So if you have any questions about the Apple Watch Ultra or any other watches that that are out right now, I've actually reviewed all of them and used all of them, so I have a pretty good perspective. So if you want to ask me any questions, feel free to do so down in the comments below. I'd love to help you out if you need any. And if you haven't already, be sure to follow me on social media. I'll have all the handles right here on the screen, and of course, linked down in the description as well. Go check me out over there. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Apple content. A lot more coming your way, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Catch you in the next one.